Do you have your Sherlock Holmes, any of that material available? Because I have to say, that score, which I was very impressed by,
Thank you. I think,
was unusual for you, I thought, and not exactly what you always do. And perhaps you never do the same thing,
well,
but
I try not to do the same thing. I mean, that's part of the adventure, that's part of the journey. Actually, all the Sherlock Holmes stuff
it's probably somewhere else.
has
Yeah.
just been unceremoniously tossed from this computer because, now I'm the other guy. I'm the Inception guy. Um, Sh- Sherlock Holmes. I every movie I work on, I try to have a concept. I try to find my voice in it, and I think, look, if you look at the films that it was Ridley Scott, I mean, Thelma and Louise is very different from Gladiator, which is very different from Black Hawk Down, which is, etc., etc. I do try within the confines of my abilities and the confines of my style. I do try to figure out some new ideas and figure out a new tone and a new style for all this stuff.
So what happened with Sherlock Holmes?
Sherlock Holmes was actually very simple because I went I went to London and saw it. I was the first person, according to Guy, who ever got to see any of it, and I liked the sort of the grittiness and the griminess of London. I mean, I lived in London for 15 years, so, it was very much the upstairs, downstairs thing, and he seemed to take care of downstairs mainly. And it just, quite honestly, it just reminded me of the Three Penny Opera and Kurt Weill, and I was thinking, wouldn't it be nice to write a score which is about humble instruments like banjos and fiddles and accordions and cimbalums from Hungary. I mean, once
Your
Guy,
own European background.
yeah, exactly. Once Guy and I started talking, we both have a great love of Irish music, and then the other thing is we like gypsy music. So part of it was we like that stuff, and it's sort of the quirkiness, it was really important for me to figure out a way of saying right at the beginning of the movie, you can have a bit of a smile here,
Yes,
you can have a bit
absolutely.
of a laugh, because actually our first scene is very dark, and I,
Well, the visuals, as you say, are fairly grim. They're dark, and
but at the same time, I was thinking about the virtuosity, as opposed to having a huge orchestra, which becomes this very homogeneous sound. I mean, that's the nature really of it, which functions beautifully under dialogue, etc. I really wanted to have the virtuosity of soloists and individual players, because I felt that was a little bit like the synapses firing in Holmes's brain, and really, at the end of the day, I wanted the adventure to take place in the mind of the main character. So make thought into action. Make the thinking process, make the process of deduction thrilling and as exciting as a car chase, And being a musician, oddly enough, I love other musicians. I love when somebody plays really well. So I managed to find all my friends from all over the world. My main violinist, Alexei Gutzman, is from Russia, lives in Vienna. My other violinist, Anne-Marie Calhoun, is from Virginia. Our bassist Diego is from Italy. I mean, we were a we were a fairly international bunch that also found ourselves in a place in London finally. And I think it's a different film score and so far because it is soloists, and usually when you have soloists,
it's not the dense, rich orchestral,
no,
and it has an
much
organic quality.
very much so. And usually when you do that, there are many reasons you do that in a film score. Usually it's budget,
Not in this case.
Not in this case, but the idea of putting a banjo into, I don't know how much the movie cost, but the big Warner Brothers blockbuster. Expensive movie. There's a perverse joy about that, and usually when you use soloist in the way I use it, it becomes very precious, you know. But this wasn't about being precious. This was about, you know, playing with
But you also had a period film, so you had, you know, you wanted to probably acknowledge that to a degree.
yes, and at the same time try to make it relevant.